In this video, I'm going to show you how to make laminate or any other non-wood surface look like real wood that's stained in a gorgeous dark walnut. So the first step, which is extremely important that you do not skip, is to give your surface a light scuff sanding using a 180 to 220 grit sandpaper. This ensures that your base layer will adhere properly and that your overall results will be long-lasting. The next step is to paint on a coat of dark primer. I'm using a medium brown, which is a really good base when you're trying to create a real wood look with a dark walnut stain. I actually just used some leftover paint to get this shade, so it's really not that important what exact type of paint that you use. You just want to make sure that it is a matte finish and it's in the medium to dark brown family. For most projects, you should only need one coat of primer. Just make sure it's a nice, smooth, even layer of paint and let it dry completely and then give it a good scuff sand with a 220 grit sandpaper. And now for the fun part. You're going to start out using the black gel stain with your foam pad. You want to get a nice thick layer of stain all over the top of the piece, pretty much covering every part of the surface and making sure you do the edges as well. You have a lot of working time with gel stain. It takes a really long time to dry, so don't worry about it drying too fast. Next, you're going to take a t-shirt rag or something of that material and wipe off some of the excess. Now, you don't want to use too much pressure here because you really want a lot of the stain to stay on. You're just trying to get some of that undertone from the primer to show through. Once you're finished wiping the black, you're going to take a new foam pad and apply a slightly less amount of the next shade, which is the dark walnut. And now it's time to blend. So grab the foam pad that you used with the black stain and use that to start blending in the walnut shade. So I just kind of go back and forth over it a bunch of times until it kind of starts mixing and it starts to create this real wood look. Now you can really see the lap lines right here. And so once you get it blended to the way that you like, you start brushing out the lap lines like I'm doing. So you're going to make your strokes longer and longer until the final stroke is going to go from one side of the surface to the next so that you don't have any lap lines. If you see any lint or tiny crumbs, you can just wipe those off with your finger and then go back over it with the foam pad. Once you're satisfied with the look, let it dry for at least 48 hours. If you decide that you don't like the way it looks once it's dry, you can always repeat this entire process. Just give it a light scuff sand with the 220 grit sandpaper and then go back over it with both shades of the gel stain, blending and working the stain until you're happy with the results. Once the gel stain is completely dry, do a test and make sure that it's not tacky or sticky at all. And if it's not, you're ready for the top coat. I prefer using a water-based satin top coat on most of my pieces. It dries super smooth, it doesn't amber or yellow over time, and it provides a beautiful, long-lasting protection. I use the same type of foam pad for applying the top coat, and I just carefully brush it on. And you want to be really smooth and even with your strokes so that this dries to a super flat surface. So all those little lines and strokes that you see will completely flatten out and it will look like a beautiful flat surface once it's dry. But you just want to make sure you get it as smooth as possible while you're applying it. So once I get that first layer applied, I just go back over it and very lightly smooth out any brush strokes or lap lines or any imperfections. But you don't want to mess with it too much because it does dry very quickly. Let it dry for about 4 to 6 hours and then give it a light scuff sanding with the 220 grit sandpaper and repeat the process 2 more times until you have a total of 3 coats. And here's how it turned out. All the products I used are linked down in the description, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to help you out with your project. Thanks for watching. See you next time.